everyone, and welcome to the Parms AR prefab video. So this is going to break down everything really about this prefab that I've been working on, and it's going to be broken up into 3 different parts. First, I'm going to show off the functionality and all the things you're able to kind of do with this prefab. Second is because this is the base rig, it's designed for people to really be able to add on their own stuff. For example, if they have their own gun models that they want to be able to use for this. That's what this is kind of for. So this is going to be showing the inner guts of how the actual rig itself works. And then thirdly is going to be showing how to actually get the prefab itself onto an avatar. So with all that said, if you want to go to those other sections, go ahead and jump to these time codes over here. And without further ado, let's jump right into how this gun actually works. So I had 3 goals in mind for how to actually get this to function. And there's a couple gun prefabs I wanted to make, but I also wanted them to feel good and look good. So that's kind of the first core thing that I wanted out of this. I wanted to make sure that it felt good. I felt like with a lot of other gun prefabs I've seen out there, they do a lot of weird gesture stuff. They might only be like one specific gesture, and that can be really weird depending on what kind of controls you have and so on. So I made sure that there's several gestures that were understood as like a naturalistic grip state. So it really doesn't really matter specifically, as long as you're doing a generalized grab in a lot of cases, you're actually going to go through and do the grab, which is pretty nice. Outside of that, of just feeling good, I also want to make sure that it was full ambi. See, I'm a lefty, so I want to make sure that people that are lefty or maybe want to grab it in different ways have that kind of options. So you can do things right-handed like so, or you can also do it left-handed. So that's one of the great benefits of this, is I wanted to make sure that everything you do has full ambidextrous control. Outside of that, I also want to make sure that it looked good. I want to make sure that the system itself had enough parts and things set up so that way you'd be able to have good visual features, not going too overboard, but enough to kind of give you a good groundwork to work off of for any gun prefabs you have out there. For example, there's different in ammo count whenever you fire. If I bring this closer to the camera, you see on each shot, you actually visually are able to see different there. So things like that just make it visually look good. So at the end of the day, I wanted it to feel good, I wanted it to be ambidextrous, and I wanted it to look good. And that's kind of the start of this rig and this prefab. So with all that said, let's actually get into the guts of some of the functionality that this prefab has. So I'm going to be doing everything left-handed because, again, I'm lefty. But just to start off, you can kind of see here I have the gun itself, which starts off on my back. If you want to grab it, you need to grab it from the back position. You can't swap from hand to hand, sadly. It's VRChat. There's some basic limits. But yeah, you can have it like this, or you can have it like that. But I'm going to be doing it left-handed, and this is kind of the start of this. So from here, you also will see that I have a mag down here. So this is going to be my secondary mag. And with that mag, I can take my, for example, current mag, and just grab this one and then put it in. This is where I'm going to be grabbing from where I'm doing my reload stuff. And I'll be showing later on the avatar upload side that pretty much all the positions and everything else is customizable in this. So if you need to add, for example, aim offsets, offsets for where your mag is being held, offsets for how your gun is being held itself in the hands, that's going to be all on the avatar side. But there are options for all of that. I also forgot to note, outside of just the gun stuff and like, for example, having the gun in the back and your magazine here, there's actually a couple of ways you could be doing grabbing in different scenarios. For example, because we have a large collision on our back, you can do an overarm, which you see me do to kind of get the AR, or you can kind of do like an underarm sling if you wanted to, which is kind of just feels really, really nice. You have a couple options with that for actually being able to grab the AR and actually start using it. Okay, outside of that, what else do we have here? So when it comes to the actual magazine, there's a couple things we can do with this. So I'm going to bring this up here so we can kind of see a little bit better. So again, you can just grab it with your opposite hand. You can also put it right back in, say if you're doing like an ammo check or so on. You can also take it and drop it, grab another mag, and then put it right back in. Totally clean, totally great, works just fine. But at the same time, there's not really a mag release button that I could have added onto this because you're limited in the number of buttons you have in VRChat. So I wanted to come up with a system that made it more intuitive and felt more natural for when you're trying to do a mag swap. So, for example, say you forget to do this and take this mag out first. What I have set up is kind of almost like an AK mag slap. If you get close enough with the other mag while it's in your hand, it will drop the current mag that's in the gun, and then you can just put your new one in. Which is pretty nice. You know, you can actually do some pretty fun stuff with that. You can kind of just kick it out and put the new one in. So there's a lot of kind of just UX, good feel and utility in having that kind of system with that. Outside of that, we also have a couple of ways that we can interact with the gun itself. So for example, we have our stock here. If you want to adjust your stock, you can take this bone here and rotate it. And these are, again, just because they're bones, you can pose them as well. And now they're going to stay in that position. You can also do an extension here. So for example, if you have a standard AR, you can have your back stock kind of slide back like so. And obviously, because you have a buffer tube, you probably just disable that fizz bone on the Unity side for that specific prefab you're working on. But yeah, the options are there either way. So you can have whatever options you want for what kind of stock stuff you have. Okay, moving beyond that, let's start getting into some of the actual operation of the firearm. So when it comes to the magazine, there's actually, and just ammo system in general, there actually does understand when you have a round chambered. That was very important for me to make sure that like the actual ammo counting and functionality made sense. I also want to make sure that there's several ways to actually release the bolt, which I'll get into in a second here. But starting off, you can see, again, just I have a full mag here, and I can go ahead and put that right in. And because I'm in full auto, I can just start firing like so. And not only that, I'm getting the projectile particle to spawn. There's also different rounds that are coming out as I'm doing so, which is pretty nice. Now, as you see, as I go through the entire mag, the bolt itself actually opened up. And there's a couple ways I can then close this bolt, as I was saying before. So starting off, the most organic way to do it is kind of pull back your charging handle, and you see right there where you just chambered around. So that feels very nice, very good. Now, if I was to, again, be unchambered and need to rack it again or close my bolt again, I can also do it by trigger. I wanted to come up with a way to do it that felt natural for other firearms that have it near... when I say near, have the bolt released near the trigger. For example, I know there's some like the ACR that might have that set up. So if you do trigger, bolt releases, but it's not firing, I put a safety check, so you have to now release your trigger and then pull again to actually start firing. So there's features like that are very nice. Thirdly, when it comes to the bolt release, I also want to make sure if you wanted to have a standard light bolt release, for example, if you wanted to have it on this side and slap it, you could. And this could also work for, say, an SMG like the MP5. If you want to do like a bolt slap or a charging handle slap like that, you can, because it's literally just a contact receiver looking for hand, and then sets a certain variable. So the way that works is you literally just go like this. You see a bolt released, and we're able to go again. So really what this does is this gives a couple ways to kind of just naturally go through and just organically use the rifle. And it just really feels really good. Now outside of this, we also have a couple settings for when it comes to our firing mode. Now you won't be able to see it, but in my radial menu, there's a full auto, semi, and safety setting. So that's really it for this menu-wise right now currently. If I go into a semi-auto mode, you can tell from my trigger here. So that's working pretty well. And then for my safety, not firing. So yeah, we're going to put back on full auto there. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Oh, I also forgot to mention, I don't know how well it's going to show up because it's gray on gray, but when I actually change my firing modes, it also updates the selector switch here as well. But yeah, that's pretty much it for the base functionality of this rifle. You're going to have your backup mag right here. You can have it on your back. You can pull it out several ways. You could do everything with either hand, right? You have your different particle systems that spawn different particles depending on situations. Another thing I want to note, we have an actual round that's coming out, a full round mesh, whereas if we fire, the mesh is actually changed over to a shell with no actual bullet in it. So there is actually that little attention to detail as well. So yeah, pretty much with all that said, there's a lot of options when it comes to this. A lot of good feel. It feels good. It feels natural when it comes to the grabbing things and just doing all these different actions and so on. It's full ambi. You're able to do everything with your left hand or your right hand. And ultimately, at the end of the day, I think it looks cool. I think it looks like it functions like a standard firearm. And once people, including myself, add different meshes onto this kind of rig platform, I feel like we could see a lot more cool ARs that are actually functional in VRChat and that feel cool. With that said, let's hop over into the Blender and Unity side, so we can kind of get some of the outline for how this works, like the inner guts, what makes it actually function, and kind of some of the prefab setup for how to actually get this kind of thing up and running. Alrighty, so now we're back over on the Blender side. And there's a couple things I want to point out before we actually even get into this. This is kind of my own custom layout, and we're also using my own custom plugin, standard like bones. Pretty much what you need to understand with this is that this is the actual joint, and anything with the blue triangle is the tail. But that's not really important in this case. I just kind of want to break down all the different parts of this rig. So really, the way I have it set up is you have your main body mesh. Actually, let me just get into our things here. There we go. So we have our main body mesh here. We have our bolt mesh here. Our charging handle, our selector switch, our stock base, our stock end, and our trigger. Alongside this, we have our magazine, and the magazine itself has several rounds that we have as just a prefab kind of setup. That's just parented to the bone itself without it being rigged. The reason we're doing it this way is on the Unity side, we can literally, as we're doing the different animations, we can just take these guys and hide them, and I'm just moving my pusher joint up as we do so. So in that sense, it just makes it a little bit easier when it comes to the animation side. And then at the same time, I have a little shell over here. I will note I did not reference a specific caliber or anything like that when it came to the shell. I just made a rough bullet shell shape. Same thing with the gun. I just made like a rough gun shape based off of reference AR. But with all that said, the whole point of this rig is so anybody else that's making their own gun prefabs or wants to have some kind of gun that they've worked on perhaps actually work with something that they have in VRChat. So it's kind of the base of this. With that said, ultimately this whole thing is just designed to where you want to be able to have this kind of mesh formatting, and this is all rigged to our gun armature. Our gun armature here is set up so that way each thing is able to also be moved. For example, what I was saying before with our armature like so. Hold on. Grab the bones. I come from Maya, so forgive me. I'm still going to use the Blender. So like what I was saying before, if you're doing like a AR-15 format, right, you could take your bones here, right, and just move them back. And in that sense, this would still have the same functionality as before, and we just have to change some things on the Unity side for the actual fizz bone that's being slid forward and back. But yeah, the root of this was to just make sure it's simple enough, easy as possible to kind of just take apart and put on whatever mesh you have set up. With that said, again, because we're using one body here for the whole thing, if you do have a different upper and lower model, you're practically combining those right here to just make your general main frame of your rifle. And again, I'm not doing anything complex with, say, like transparent internals and showing like actual gas blowback or anything like that. I wanted to make sure that this was a simple enough gun that it could work with many different models and gun types. So yeah. And it also goes to other features too, like for example with the fizz bone that we will have on this bone in Unity. It's like you don't even have to have this be able to rotate. You could just disable that fizz bone and just have this go again if you're going with more of an AR format or AR-15 format, I should say. So yeah, with the Blender side, it's pretty much it. You know, you have your models, your rig, your separated mag, which is its then own FBX you'd export out, and then yeah, your shell. So with all that said, let's jump over to the Unity side. And on the Unity side, we have several components here that we have set up. So starting off, we have our AR rig model. So this is just the basic actual AR itself. Then we have the magazine, and then as we see here, the magazine is set up like so. Within the magazine, we have our mag bone, which pretty much is just our mag joint, and then our pusher joint. And within each animation state, again, what I'm doing is I'm hiding different bullets and I'm moving this pusher up. It's kind of like an extra feature. You don't necessarily need to do that, but if it's something that you want to tweak, the option's there. So yeah, so that's basics of the mag. When it comes to the actual AR here, again, you can see you can have your charging handle moved back if you want. I don't know why this is locked. Either way, you get the idea. I would change that in Blender on either side. But point is, it's customizable and it's set up so that you can do stuff for whatever you need in AR. Outside of that, we have our VC AR parameters, or VRChat assault rifle parameters. This is pretty much just all the base stuff that we have in here. I honestly don't even need these VRC emote stuff, but it's there by default. This doesn't really matter. Then over here we just have our basic menu that I have set up for our safety and our full auto as well. Outside of that, it's really just the sounds, which we only have a couple clips, and then our animations. When it comes to the actual components of the prefab itself, though, we can get a little more complex with our stuff. So I'm going to actually show all this stuff here, and you can see that there's actually a lot of good components on this. So when it comes to the actual AR components itself, let's kind of break this down first. So as you see here, we have a good number of fizz bones on the stock here, again for rotating and being able to pull it out. This collider here is for our mag slap. This one right here, there's actually a couple overlapping for left and right, and or mag 1 or mag 2, depending on the component. But that's what these colliders are, is detecting either it's mag 1 or mag 2 that is socketed. Our forward grip here identifies when we have an overlapping hand and when we go into a grip state. And then we have our actual charging handle up here. Now something else I did is I made sure with the charging handle we have a child fizzbone collider. That's this green square, and that's pushing against the actual fizzbone of the bolt. And the reason why this is important is because when we're changing in and out of animations but the charging handle's back, it will stay back instead of trying to launch the bone back forward. So it's just nice. Now, I'm sure a lot of you guys that are more used to working with prefabs and stuff might see that there's extra contact senders and receivers here. And the reason I'm using this instead of the fizz bone push and pull or full stretch is because for some reason, I don't know if it was a recent update with VRChat, but the stretch parameter was just not working. It will identify grabbed, but for some reason stretch wasn't working. That could be something on my current install, I don't know, but I want to make sure I had something that definitely worked, so I just made sure that when it came to actually getting to the extent of being fully pulled, I had this contact receiver and sender set up properly. With that said, when it comes to pretty much everything else is pretty straightforward. For example, our mag position here and our mag holder just identifies, hey, is it mag 1 or mag 2? With a mag position, our mag position is literally just parent constrained to whatever bone you prefer. So that's pretty much that. When it comes to our back collider, it's pretty much the same thing. We have our actual back collider that you can change the scale of, so on, and it's checking for if our left hand and or right hand is reaching, and if it is, we're just taking a custom parameter that like, hey, we're actually reaching back there, and so on. And again, with our actual position root object here, we can change this out and do whatever. With our gun positions, these are pretty much just controlling where our gun is being held. We have our back position here, our left hand position, our right hand position. When it comes to our hand positions, we have our aim components, and then we also have our mag components. Our aim components determine where our other hand is aiming at, so if you have weird hands, you can do that. Or our mag component controls where our mag is being held relative to our hand. To visualize this with the mag, you can come down here to your world reference. The mags are in world reference because they need to be in world space for whatever they do with their gravity drop. But if you want to visualize this, you can just come down to mag joint, and then you could say left mag here, change your weights out, and now you're good. You can move your left mag position here to kind of determine where that's at. I'm also going to outline this in the avatar upload section just so it's understood. But yeah, outside of these hand positions, you're able to also do the same thing with the AR base here by just adjusting which weights have control over here. So now we have it on the back, and now we can also put it back on the left hand and so on. So yeah, it's pretty nice. Outside of that, we have our aim constraints. I'll get more into this, how this works on the avatar uploading side. Just know that there's different options here for your references for when you're actually trying to get your aim constraints to work properly. And then yeah, our world reference. Our world reference is really just a reference object, again, mainly just for our mags. Whenever we drop our mags, we want to make sure that they're actually dropping in world space. And yeah, our mags are literally just the prefab we had before down here. and we just have them set up with their animations and so on, just within here, where we're hiding each one of these rounds individually and then moving our pusher. A little tedious, but given how I wanted to kind of make things a little bit easier for me on the animation side, I felt like that was the best approach to that, while also making it a little more realistic. Outside of that, let's get back actually into the guts of the AR. So if we get into our AR rig here, we see all of our meshes and then our AR bones. If we go into AR bones, you can kind of see where everything's in here is kind of set up. And I have everything based on the bone side instead of the mesh side. So on our body joint, this is where we're having the majority of our contact receivers. For example, with our forward overlap here, we are looking for both our right hand and left hand. So again, we can identify which hand is grabbing forward. That helps with the ambi grabbing process. Then we also have a couple mag contacts here. So for example, if I move this, you see there's another one overlapping, because we're just identifying if it's mag 1 or mag 2 in this space as well. Outside of this, we also have our bolt back contact receiver, C-handle back contact receiver, and our bolt slap. So the bolt slap one here, this might be the one that you would want to change, say if you're doing an NP5 or something else like this. You might even want to just remove this component from here and put it on another one, for example, on the charging handle. Again, if you're doing like a MP5 slap or something like that. But at the end of the day, you're looking for the C-handle back custom parameter or custom tag. And then for the parameter itself, it's also just C-handle back. With this, again, with the setup, it's also set to be ambidextrous right now. If you want something more accurate to what an AR would be like, you'd be... That's not the right one. That's the C-handle one. Let's go over to bolt slap. Everything I just said about the bolt slap, I started saying C-handle. If you're wanting to do the bolt slap stuff, make it look for hand and the parameter bolt slap. That's correction. Either way, if you're wanting to do more accurate bolt slap here, you can adjust your Z to be on this side. So that way, whenever your bolt is back and you want to do closing, you can do it that way. But yeah, that's pretty much it for the bolt slap stuff and for all these other main contacts. For when it comes to our actual bolt here, we have a fizz bone and then as well as a VRC contact sender. So pretty much this is just a child of this. So whenever this goes back to our body, we can identify, hey, our bolt is actually all the way back. On top of this, when it comes to our charging handle forward, we have another fizz bone. We have a contact sender. And then we also have our bone collider. And this bone collider specifically is looking for our bolts bone. As you can see here, our charging handle 2 joint is right here. And again, the main reason for this is if I pull the bolt all the way back, is technically activating an animation state saying like, hey, you can go forward or back to your default animation state. But in doing so, by having this fizz bone in this setup, I can now slowly bring the bolt back and forth, which makes it actually work more properly. Outside of our bolt stuff, we also have our stock bones, and these different bones are just set up with their own hinge constraints, so that way again you can rotate it 180 degrees or pull it out as a stretch. Outside of that, we have our particle systems object. Now, I went pretty simple with this. I just wanted to have a basic barrel one. I have one for your shells and one for your rounds. And these are actual different meshes for when you're firing, at least in what I have here. That is not the right thing. Right here. So we see we have a shell mesh right here, which is actually right here, this round shell. So if we were to view this, there we go. You can see that it's missing a bullet there. It's super simple geometry, but you get the idea. And then for the actual round, what I'm doing is I'm just referencing one of the rounds from the mag here. So I can just come in here, do this, and we see we're doing round 1 as our reference object for that. So yeah, with that said, that's pretty much the ins and outs of this rig. Pretty simplistic again, nothing too crazy. But I feel like it gives enough options for if people want to upload their own models and then have it formatted to this. They can have basic functionality while then also having something that looks really cool. All right, let's get working on getting the package actually onto our avatar. So for this, we're going to need the Avatar Manager 3.0 because we're going to be doing this the manual way. So to start off, what we really just need is our Unity package and just drag that right into our Unity scene. And here's going to be all of our animations, assets, and so on. Just go ahead and hit import. And now we have our parms folder here. And within our parms folder for potato arms, we have our AR. And within our AR folder, what we're going to be grabbing is our AR base and just dragging that right into the scene. And from this, we're just going to zero this out. As you can see here, this is zeroed and lined up with our avatar. You should be able to scale this, and at the same time, you can move around components individually as we get this set up. So yeah, right now what I'm going to do is make sure that this is also within our actual rig as a child object. And once that is set up, we're going to run through all the different gun position stuff because we need to start setting some references for your actual rig's constraints. So starting off, we're going to start off actually with our mag position here. And our mag position is actually going to be the position in which our backup mag is going to be stored. So when you're doing a reload, this is like where you're grabbing to go and get your actual secondary mag. Now you can put this really wherever you like. It's free moving, but at the end of the day, you want to make sure it's actually bound to a specific bone, and the way we're doing that is right here. So as long as you click on magazine position and set your source transform onto, for example, a spine bone here. I'm going to do spine 1 in my case because he's kind of lower here. Then you should be good. From there, we're going to go onto our back collider, and this is going to be the actual collider in which we're reaching back to go grab our gun. And again, you can scale this individually and so on. But what I like to do is I like to have this on my upper spine, so I'm going to do this on spine 2. And again, your spine bones, or your bones in general, might be named differently. So just keep that in mind. Just know that you're binding it to roughly around here, at least in my case, so that way it can stay onto your back. All right, so that from there, we want to go to our back position here, and this is going to be the back position for the gun. As you see, we're within our gun position objects here. So for this, I'm also going to do spine 2. As you can see, go to my left hand, apply left hand, and right hand. Now again, for the hands, this is either going to be your dedicated hand bone or your wrist bone, because it's going to be the root of the motion of your actual hand logic. So from there, that's pretty much it for all we need for all the gun position stuff. And another way to visualize this, if you want to see how the gun looks in these different positions, what you could do is you can actually go back up to the AR-based rig object right here and change the weights of your parent constraints here. So if I wanted to adjust how it looked in the left hand, I could put it on the left hand like I just did. And now the actual left hand position component, I can move around and adjust however I need. At the same time, there's also subcomponents for the hands. So what these do is we have our left aim component, and this is what the gun is going to be aiming at. So for example, if the gun's in the right hand, like so, this left aim component determines what it would be aiming at in this sense. So if you needed to create an offset, move it off in case you have like a model with weird hands or so on, you can do it that way, and that's a nice and easy way to adjust where the actual gun is aiming. At the same time, we have our left mag component, and this is going to be where the mag is seated whenever it's in your hand. Now, the magazines are actually going to have a world reference object here, and that's because when you let them go, they need to fall in world space. So I'm going to use mag 2 here as an example. So if I go down to mag joint, I can do the same thing here with my parent constraint, swap out the weights. Now, the positions that the mag can be locked in are going to be mag locked, which is going to be into the AR, left hand, right hand, or in the holder. I'm going to disable the holder, put on left. And again, you can see here how it sits in the left. If you want to adjust how that looks, you just move around the left mag component and you're all fine and dandy. Alrighty. I'm going to put that back onto the holder because I like its positioning. Alrighty. So from here, that's the basics of actually moving around your components, getting them in different positions and getting them lined up as you like. But now we need to do one more thing with these constraints, and that's going to be our left aim constraint and our right aim constraint. And the reason I have this set up like this is because different rigs will have different orientations for some of your wrist and or hand bones. So I want to kind of go through this real quick and break down why this is set the way it is. So to start off, I'm going to show off with the left hand here. And the way this is going to be set up is we're going to do left hand up here as our world up object. And in our advanced settings, we're also going to be making this our left hand. So what this does is it says, hey, we're orienting towards what our left hand is, while at the same time also moving our left hand. Our left hand is going to be what's aiming towards, in this case, our right aim component over here. Now, what's nice about this is that means our wrist will actually move along with the gun. But you have to make sure that your wrist is actually in the proper orientation. What do I mean by this? In regards to, for example, our left hand here, this is our left hand position, but I'll show you the left bone in a second. But to break this down, we have green or Y facing out, we have red X facing forward, and blue and Z facing down. If I come over to my left hand here, you see this is facing the same orientation. You need to make sure that you have this kind of orientation with your rig in order to do specifically your left hand here. If you don't, your aim constraint can get really wonky orientation and things will get jank. When it comes to the right hand, it needs to be similar but rotated. So it's going to be green out, X back, and still Z blue down. So pretty much you want to make sure your orientation is set up so that way your Z is down and your Y is always facing out. That's kind of the structure of how these constraints work. If they're not, then that's why I have things set up so you can do it this way as well. So left hand, I'm going to be showing how to do it with actual wrist rotating with the gun. With the right hand, what I'm going to be doing is set this to right, hand position. Right, and then we're going to do the same for down here just like we did before. Right hand position. All right, so what this will do, and you'll see in the VRChat later, is that in the left hand, like we said, the actual wrist of your avatar, because we're having it be the target transform here, actually will rotate as you rotate and aim with the gun. But with our right hand here, what we're doing is the base of the gun is actually going to be what's moving regardless of the hand position. So in other words, it'll be like rotating in the hand. So it might not look as clean, but if your rig is set up in a different way, it still gives you the option of having it set up this way, so that way you can actually still aim properly. So that's why I set up like that way. Rigs could get very different depending on who makes them. So I want to make sure that people have the option to actually get this set up to whatever works for them. Alternatively, if you want to bang your head and get it to work with wrist, if your hand is not in this orientation, you could take your rig into Blender and make your bone into this orientation. Or try to mess around with the aim constraint stuff. But I do not recommend that. Aim constraints in Unity don't really have any good visualizer gizmos or anything like that. So I would do it on a Blender side, but that's just a side note. Either way, you have the options here to get this set up however you'd like. All right, now that we have this set up, now we can actually combine the animators, parameters, and everything else to get this set up to work with our avatar. So I'm going to just start closing that out a little bit like so. So first off, we need to get into our 3.0 manager here, and I'm going to drop off into our Potato V7 rig. Now within this, I'm going to go to our effects layer. I usually do things in the effects layer. And here we can see we have all the stuff that we have for my current avatar. But I need to add an animator for the gun onto this. So I'm going to say add animator to merge and make it this little drop down. And our animators right here are AR anim controller. So we're just click and drag right up there. And you see that we have all of our extra animator layers and parameters here. And to keep things clean in my sense, I usually do merge on new. Now what this does is you will now create a new animator object. And we can actually view this by going to our avatar here, going down to this, and we see this says Potato V7 Rig 4. You'll usually get like a new number. I've done this a couple times. But as you can see here, in our animator, we have all of our old stuff plus all of our new stuff. Outfit's kind of where things ended with my old parameters here. But now we have all this and all of our new layers added in from aiming down. So this is pretty nice. This is working pretty well. Looks like things merged over just as we wanted. But not only this, we also need to combine our expression parameters for VRC. So what I'm going to do here is go back to our AR folder here. And we see that we have our VRC AR parameters. What I'm going to do is we have this drop down right here. Just click and drag this right in here and say copy parameters. And now on our root object here, we now have all of these extra parameters put onto that. And again, we can verify this by going back to our avatar right here, if we click on this guy, double click on that, we see we have all of our old, again, outfits was where it ended, and we have all of our new ones here as well. So that worked perfectly. All right. Final step is actually getting a menu set up so we can get into our extra menu features. The way I have this set up for myself here is I made a duplicate of what my current menu is. So I have potato V7 main menu. But over here, I just made a duplicate potato V7 gun. All you really need to do is go into here, create a new toggle. So here, I can actually delete this and I'll show you step by step. We're going to remove this image here. We're going to call this gun settings. Make this a submenu. We no longer need a parameter here. And then the actual submenu, we just want to bring up like so. Oh, sorry. No, not that one. That's our root one. We're going to go back to AR, VRC ARM right here. Or VRC AR menu. Right? So now our submenu that we have can now go into this. And then on the actual rig itself, you want to make sure this is where you want to put your new guy here. So that's pretty much it. From here, everything should be set up. I'm going to go ahead and build this and see how things go. Alrighty, now we're back in the VRChat side. I might sound a little bit further away. I'm still using my desktop mic instead of my Beyond one, so forgive me for that. But let's see how the avatar actually looks here. So we're going to go ahead and click on gun test here. And it looks like things are actually constrained properly and things are going good. So I'm going to grab with each hand and kind of show you guys what I meant earlier about the actual hand rotation stuff. So again, with our left hand, you can see that the left hand actually rotates properly when we're aiming with our gun. And that's because we set it to be the actual left hand that is being the aimed object, right? And this is really the ideal. This makes things kind of feel really good. But again, if you're balanced at the orientations, that's why we have the other option. So that's where you can come over here. And you see, okay, so the hand is free, but we're still able to get proper aiming, roll control, and so on with the gun as we have in our hand. So if things kind of work weirdly in your case, that's why I gave this as an option. So just keep that in mind. And yeah, with that said, it looks like everything else is working great. Do kickouts there, grab this, go ahead and shoot things. And also with our menu, let's give a little check to that. Gun settings is right there, go on semi. Yep, and our safety. So yeah, that's looking pretty good. Looks like things are pretty spot on. If you have any problems, go ahead and refer back to the video. And thank you for watching, and thank you for looking to Prefab.